from the AirTech Heating Studios, a Born to Win media production. Welcome to the resurrection of Say It Like You See It.
AFC NFC Championship Week. We are down to the final two games in the NFL season, and boy, are we excited. We are live here from the AirTech Heating Studios in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. This is Say It Like You See It, and I am one of your hosts. My name is Trace the Moose Moustakis. Alongside me, my partner in crime, Mr. Mighty Q, the Quinn himself, who, believe it or not, we have some interesting news. Quinn here just became a sponsor or a brand ambassador, I should say, for the very first time. First of all, let me just say congratulations. That's some really impressive stuff.
Thank you. Yeah. So bucked up. I am now a brand ambassador. So it's kind of cool. So I've always used their pre-workout. Anything I do as a after workout is pretty much just whey protein. But I've used Bucked Up now for like 2.5 years, and I love their pre-workout. And so now I get a chance to rep the most popular, hottest selling pre-workout at both GNC and Vitamin Shop. So
yes,
I don't know.
Awesome.
I'm pretty happy about it. It's a fun time.
Well, I'm sure we're going to give you a little plug here at the end of the show. But before we do that, we have to actually do the show. And of course, like we said, we are down to the final two games of the NFC and the AFC. So let's start. It's championship weekend. Let's do the NFC first. We've got the Eagles and the 49ers. Now, this is probably the most star-studded game of the weekend with Pro Bowlers on either side of the ball for both teams. Quinn, let's start with you. What do you see from this game? Who do you like?
Well, it being played in Philly, head coach Nick Sirianni told the fans to make it to make them say "whoa," I think is the exact quote. Having been in very loud stadiums, it is different when you get playing with a rowdy crowd. Playing behind that and having those miscommunications on offense, whether it be one play, whether it be 5 plays that you mess up, one mistake is enough to cost you the game in the NFL. And so could it come down to, a miscommunication that leads to a false start, that is a penalty that gets somebody out of field goal range, that could be the potential game-winning field goal that it ends up being? That's how tight this game is, where it can genuinely be one play, one mistake, and because of that, one team is winning, the other one isn't. I think the 49ers at this point are riding on, we are very, very good collectively as a team and as a unit. Brock Purdy played at Iowa State. He's riding on a high. He honestly is getting a chance to play with players finally of his caliber to a degree. We can look at what he did at Iowa State. And really, at the end of the day, he's a guy that played with receivers that weren't of his same caliber. We're not talking about Iowa State receivers that are making it in the NFL today. I think if he can continue doing the things that Kyle Shanahan has put in place for him to do, then the 49ers can keep on this roll. But with that being said, Brock Purdy has made some mistakes that other teams haven't been able to capitalize. I think the Eagles defense is really, really good. I think they're not going to make the same mistakes as other teams will that they could have capitalized on that would have definitely penalized the 49ers. But at the end of the day, I think the 49ers didn't play well last week in that prime slot, being on that, Sunday evening game and wrapping up the weekend. I think any team that doesn't play to their full capabilities and definitely is almost on the worst side, like they didn't really play that great, I think they always have a bounce back week. I think for the exact opposite, I think the Eagles came out on full cylinder. I think they had a fantastic bye week. I think they came out oiled up. They were ready to go. They walked through the Giants in a team that playing for the third time is very, very hard to do. And at this point, I think the Eagles will probably pull back a little bit. They'll make a few more mistakes. I think the 49ers, clean a couple things up. At the end of the day, I'm more or less taking the 49ers in this game more because of how Kyle Shanahan is as a coach. I think he is a more collective and a better unit at this point, with, I think, a couple better pieces that are, slightly edging out the 49ers. But at the end of the day, I think in terms of the head coaching battle and the chess match that's going to be played, I'm giving the edge to Shanahan, and that's why I got the 49ers winning in this one. Trace, I don't know what you got to say on this one, though.
So this is a very interesting matchup because you're going against both teams have an elite offense and an elite defense, right? So I don't think the 49ers have ever faced a pass rush this season, at least, quite like what the Eagles have, led by Hassan Reddick, by the way, who was tied for top 6. I believe he was actually number 6 in sacks this season. Got to the quarterback, did an amazing job. Same with Fletcher Cox and that entire, Philadelphia D line. This is a really, really well coached football team on both sides. So you've got the Eagles, who are riding high, like you said. They're the number 1 seed. Jalen Hurts has had a spectacular season. AJ Brown has been an unbelievable acquisition. And even guys who have had more of a quiet year, kind of, Devontae Smith has still been unbelievably productive, and yet kind of gets overshadowed by some of the plays that AJ Brown has made. But I think you're right. I think with the way that the 49ers are constructed, they're going to play as hard as they can with that physical style of football. But I also believe that Nick Sirianni is planning a game plan where it's just going to be blitz all the time, because Brock Purdy's 8-0, and they're going to say, let's see how he does with some pressure. He's a rookie quarterback. There is no way he should come into our house if we just put all of the pressure on him to make throws. There is no reason that he should walk out victorious. And if he does, more props to him. But you have to be hyper aggressive if you're the Eagles right now. And if you're the 49ers, it's all about containing, right? You have to contain Jalen Hurts because he's a dual threat. You've got to contain AJ Brown because if you let him one-on-one, he's going to destroy you. He's just that strong. You've got to do a good job of making sure that it's a balanced effort everywhere you go. You can't be focusing on one person too long because there's another person ready to make a play. So I think it's going to be really interesting. I think this is a pick'em game. It's a toss-up. You got to choose the money line. I'm going to say Eagles, and I'm going to say Eagles narrowly. And I think this is a really low-scoring game because both defenses are going to be hyper-aggressive. I'm going to say a lot of sacks in this game. Obviously the Niners are no slouch. Nick Bosa is unbelievable. So I'm looking at Eagles taking the victory in this one, but I'm going to say it's going to be like 21-17.
I'd have to agree. I would say it's definitely going to be lower scoring. Just both defenses being so good, it could actually end up being, to some people that don't like watching really good defenses play, they're going to say it's boring football. But as someone who does play defense, likes the defensive scheme and how to set up the game, I would definitely agree with you. I think it's going to be slightly higher. I think they do make it into the mid-20s, but I think 27-24 49ers based off a late Robbie Gould field goal to actually give them the win.
Well, Gold is golden, and I don't believe he's missed in the playoffs. I think that's the stat that I read. I don't think he's missed once.
Way to go.
Did I just jinx it?
If you did and he misses a field goal, I'm 100% blaming you.
Okay, that's fair. I'll take that L. But yeah, like I said, this is going to be this. I don't think it's the most exciting game of the weekend, but I do think it is the most star-studded game of the weekend. I mean, both of these teams have Pro Bowlers on every single unit. I don't think I've ever seen that before, to be completely honest.
It's two great teams, and I think it's more kind of what you can see across the entire NFL if you actually look at each conference. The AFC has shifted to where every single team is like vying, trying to get a tremendous transcendent quarterback talent. And like, they all keep trying, they all keep changing things around. I mean, like, look at what the Cardinals did. I mean, they drafted a guy and then they immediately drafted another quarterback the next year in Kyler Murray, because they're always trying to stay up to date with, well, there's Justin Herbert, there's Patrick Mahomes, there's Joe Burrow, there's Josh Allen, there's Lamar Jackson, there's, Deshaun Watson now with the Browns and how he's going to do. And Tua's in there as well. And you can make an argument for him. And now Trevor Lawrence is there. So you look at the AFC and it's like stars everywhere at quarterback. And then you look at the rest of the team and you're like, well, they have a good receiver and like, well, they have a good running back and well, they've got a solid defense, but it's not a great defense. Versus you flip it to the NFC and it's like, well, I mean, you've got Dak and Brock Purdy and Jalen Hurts and, Justin Fields. And you start to look at the collective of the quarterbacks in the NFC and like a guy like Geno Smith, makes his team so much better. But it's like, is it really on him? I don't really think it's really the quarterback that is the main function and driver on really almost any team in the NFC, because it's all about the better team around him. Like, we liked the Cowboys last week, but at the end of the day, we knew, well, the Cowboys aren't as complete as the 49ers on defense. They're not as complete as the 49ers on offense. They don't have as many guys on this unit. They don't have as many guys on this unit. It's like the better team won. And the same for the Eagles. They beat the Giants because they are a collective better team. They have a better quarterback, better offensive line. They've got better receivers. They got better deep. Like, it's a collective team unit. And that's what the NFC has shifted to, which is why I think this year with the actual Super Bowl game, both teams that made it to both conference championships, I don't care which scenario it ends up being, no matter what, it's actually exactly the same. The top two best quarterbacks right now in the game are both in the AFC. They're both in the AFC championship game. Either one of them wins. It's either the first or second best quarterback going against the first or second best complete team. Okay, who's going to win? Are you taking the quarterback because they're the best quarterback on the field and they've got a couple weapons that make them that much better? Or is it going to be an NFC winner based on it was a team game, it was a team unit win, they wanted every position, and that's why, because they're wholly better as a unit. And it's just crazy how the AFC and NFC has split like that.
No, I completely agree with you. And to make a point, you mentioned both of these teams are great. We should mention that Brock Purdy's still a rookie. So there's an element of this offense that is still sort of remedial. Kyle Shanahan is not making this complicated for him. I mean, there's a lot of play action. There's a lot of, hey, first read, look for it. It's probably there because Debo has the ability to separate. Brandon Ayuk has the ability to separate. And don't even get me started on George Kittle. So you've got three, and you add Christian McCaffrey. I mean, so on every single play, usually, even if there's a breakdown, your offensive line is good enough to keep you in the pocket for an extra second or two. He's going to find his first or second read 90% of the time. And that's a very easy game for a lot of quarterbacks, especially when, look, you have such a competent offensive line. So what happens when the secondary for the Eagles matches up with almost every single player on the 49ers? We're going to really see Brock Purdy be tested this weekend, and I think a lot is going to come out. Is he the guy? Is he going to be the guy going forward? I'll say this. If he wins the game, if he goes out and has even if a decent game, and he goes out and he wins, he has solidified himself as a starter going forward.
100%. No rookie has ever made it to the Super Bowl. So as a starting quarterback, there's not a starting rookie that's made it to the Super Bowl.
Correct.
Like you said, with what Kyle Shanahan's doing, that's why I just trust in Kyle Shanahan. I think the 49ers, I think they got it wrapped up in this one. I think it's going to be close, but I like the 49ers to win. You got the Eagles. I think there it is. Another perfect, you against I type bet. And
I like it.
If we look at last weekend, I picked all 4 games right. So I'm just throwing it out there. I was perfect on the weekend. I'm kind of sad I didn't throw a parlay on it. I normally bet on the NFL like every weekend, and I literally didn't bet at all last weekend. And
that was the one time you went perfect.
If I literally would have bet, I could have made a lot of money, because the 4-leg parlay with all those teams, I think ended up being like plus 400 or something like that. So I could have literally 4 times whatever I put in.
Yeah, you could put a nice little $50 bet down, made $200.
Hey, people gotta try bucked up, and I can get that 200 back.
If ifs and ands were pots and pans, I'd have a full stocked kitchen. All right. All right. So let's move on to the most exciting game though of the weekend. The game everybody's talking about. 2 best quarterbacks in the NFL, in my opinion, going back and forth at each other. The Kansas City Chiefs against the Bengals. Now, when this game originally came out, they had the Chiefs heavily favored. It was Chiefs minus 3.5 at the beginning of the week. This game teeter-tottered so much, it actually went down to yesterday. The Bengals were minus 2, and then now back up to the Chiefs minus 1.5. So there's a lot of fluctuation. Vegas doesn't even know what's going on. It has a lot to do, I believe, with that ankle of Patrick Mahomes. So Quinn, let's start with you. One of your favorite players that you've ever seen play, Mr. Patty Mahomes. What do you like from this matchup?
Yeah, so it's interesting with Patty and the ankle. He's had a high ankle sprain before. The last time he had a high ankle sprain was back in 2019. He then went on to win both games that they like immediate games right after that ankle sprain. And that's also the same year that he ended up winning a Super Bowl.
Ooh.
So if we want to look at
Foreshadow.
if we want to look at Patrick Mahomes and an ankle injury, the last time I saw him off an ankle injury, he played 2 virtually perfect games. I think he had 7 touchdowns, no picks, had a bunch of yards in both games. I think averaged over 250 yards in each game. And at the end of the day, it's one of those, he's going to have it taped up. And I saw a little video of him walking away from the podium, like no limp, no grimace, no anything. Like, I think at the end of the day, either his adrenaline is going to be moving enough that he's not really going to feel the ankle. He's doing rehab every day. He's doing the right recovery. They've got the way that the NFL and their medical professionals are, they have access to like more stuff than like a regular everyday person does. So like an athlete or someone who's playing basketball in the gym could roll an ankle. They can be out and down for like months. In the NFL, they've got a little bit different access to some different stuff. So both with the rehab that he's been doing, the different recovery, the rebuilding, and the extra medical thing, I think at the end of the day, he's going to be over 90% for this game. And I think at that level, he's quite a difference maker. Now, yes, he has lost every game to the Bengals. I think that does play a little bit into this game, but I think that not only makes him play better, I think it makes the rest of the team play better, because at the end of the day, it is a team sport. It's not Patrick Mahomes playing against Joe Burrow. It is the Chiefs offense against the Bengals defense and the Bengals offense against the Chiefs defense. But in the grand scheme, it is one team against the other. It's all a collective where 11-man is one unit. So the whole Patrick Mahomes versus Joe Burrow thing is getting played up. Patrick Mahomes is most likely the league MVP. The rest of the team around him understands they haven't beat the Bengals. I think out of anybody getting super motivated and really looking forward to playing the Bengals, and this being like a new rivalry, and the fact that this could genuinely be the new Tom Brady versus Peyton Manning in the AFC, like we could see these two teams and these two quarterbacks dueling against each other for a very long time to come. But the rest of the cast around Mahomes, I think, is going to be more motivated on the, hey, you guys haven't beat the Bengals, and like, are they going to get it done? The Bengals should be favored. And it's like, no, we're the top seed. We know what we can do. We have Patrick Mahomes. I'm going to step up and play better. The next guy next to me is going to step up and play better. The Chiefs collectively will probably try to raise so it can like try to assist Patty, knowing, hey, he might not have everything. So in a lot of those times, it's like, hey, Patty's bailed us out. I think they're going to try their best and more try to carry Patty and allow him to do all the great things that he's always done and play the game the way he's played, with a lot more freedom and a lot more reserve, trying to not think about, hey, we haven't beat the Bengals. But at the end of the day, it's still the Bengals. Like, they're no slouch. They've got it. They've got a crisp offense. They know what they're doing. Like, Zach Taylor has a great game plan schemed up. He plays the Chiefs well. They match up fantastically well against the Chiefs. And at the end of the day, I think this is more going to be on how well Andy Reid can get the Chiefs offense moving the ball down the field, and how well he can get great play out of Patrick Mahomes will determine if the Chiefs are able to win this game. I think the Chiefs have the capabilities of winning this game, and I'm going to base it on, I think Patty is at least 90% healthy. I think the Chiefs are going to step up and play better around him. I've got Chiefs close to make it back, and I think the whole Eli Apple trash talk is the only reason the Chiefs are willing to make that happen.
So you and I briefly mentioned before we started that the best way to coach a quarterback, especially one as talented as Burrow and Mahomes, is to not ask them to be amazing every single play or 50% of the plays, but to ask them to be great 5 or 6 plays throughout the game. Extended drive on 3rd and long, or, hey, we need a touchdown. It's 3rd and goal on the opponent's 16, and we need a touchdown right here. Make the throw. Those guys can do it. But the difference, I believe, between Andy Reid's coaching and Zach Taylor's coaching is there's a much more balanced attack that the Bengals have. They have the luxury of Joe Mixon in the running game, who can also catch passes. So if there needs to be a little check down or a little swing screen over to Joe Mixon, they can do that. Isaiah Pacheco, he's a rookie. I mean, he's made some really nice plays, but I mean, to be completely honest, the backfield for the Chiefs is just average, right? Clyde Edwards-Helaire, average. Jerick McKinnon, average. And then Isaiah Pacheco, we've seen moments where we're like, okay, he could be the guy going forward, but still a rookie. He's had a C+, B- year. The difference is Andy Reid is incredibly reliant on Patrick Mahomes. And why wouldn't he be? Mahomes is arguably, if not the most talented quarterback we've ever seen play the game. Him and Rodgers are the most talented, I would ever say, that have ever played. But with that being said, Patrick makes mistakes. We've seen stretches where his mechanics get sloppy, where he throws a lot of picks. Granted, there was a lot of drop balls in that time span. But here's what I will say. Zach Taylor knows exactly how Joe Burrow's strengths work. He knows, hey, I'm not asking Joe to be great in the first 8 or 9 minutes of this game. I'm asking Joe to be great at the end of the games when we need a 2-minute drill. We're down by 3. Joe, just go out and take that drive. He knows how to coach situationally better, I believe, than Andy Reid. Although I believe Andy Reid is the ultimate play designer. He's the ultimate master manipulator of defenses. And he'll go down as probably the best play caller and play designer of all time. But I believe this year and in years prior, and this is what we saw last year, Zach Taylor knows how to situationally coach better than Andy Reid because he knows I don't have to be reliant on Joe to be great every single play. I just need him to go out and make the layups. And then when it's time to shoot the long ball or go out for the slam dunk, he can do that too. With that being said, I'm taking the Bengals, but I believe this game goes to overtime, and I believe this is a final score: Bengals 34, Chiefs 31 on a game-winning field goal from Evan McPherson in overtime. Give me the Bengals going to the Super Bowl, second year in a row.
And I think one thing that people are forgetting about last year's game, the Chiefs played the Bengals after having what was maybe one of the best victories ever. 13 seconds left.
Without question.
Against a fantastic Bills team. They literally scored. You've got 13 seconds on the clock. I still don't know why the Bills actually kicked off and made a touchback on that play, because that gave Patrick Mahomes a stopped clock, 13 seconds, and they went down with one timeout, and they were able to kick a field goal, tie the game up, first drive in overtime, win. That game sent them on an absolute emotional roller coaster. You had guys on the sideline. I remember when the camera panned over, there was a couple of Chiefs defenders like just shaking their head. They were, not really exactly prepared. Like, they understand it's 13 seconds. It's the NFL. The Bills have a good defense. They know what's going on. Like, to go 54 yards in 13 seconds or however many yards that I forget it ended up being, it's like, that's not going to happen. It's not normal. It's not common. No one's done it. But yet it happened. And there was this giant rush and like everyone's on high. And we know what happens when you play a very emotional game and what happens the next week. So thinking about it this last week, okay, yes, Patrick Mahomes got hurt in the first half, came back, played better in the second half. But it was a game that the Chiefs were expected to win the entire time. Like, the Chiefs didn't play that great. Like, it was a game they were expected to win. They were the better team. We knew the Jags were ahead of schedule. They had, the week before, their big game, their big emotion. And so now, to that same regard, we saw the Bengals play almost a perfect game against the Bills. That was one of the best that we've seen them play. Now, you're walking into Arrowhead with an opposing crowd that is maybe the loudest. I mean, it's dependent on Seattle. Like, it literally goes back and forth. Could it be a miscue that's in Arrowhead with some noise? Could it be one missed pass? Could it be a slightly different energy level based off how good they played last week? And if you don't, like, sometimes, hey, we played so great last week, and you don't miss, you miss one play and it's like, oh, you have some guys that just get super upset. I think the fact that the Bengals played damn near perfect last week and the Chiefs played a semi-sloppy, not as emotional game is actually more the reason why I give it the edge, because I think they're a lot more focused. Hey, we lost in the beginning of the season. We lost to them last year. Like, now it's time for us to be like, yeah. They beat us last year, but like, no. Like, this is our time. Like, we're the better team. Like, let's go out and get it. And I think that's just fine. I think you taking the Eagles and me taking the 49ers and you taking the Bengals and me taking the Chiefs is the best thing. Like, I love it. I think it's great. The fact that, like, hey, you've got your picks, I've got mine. 2v2 against a parlay. What are we putting on it?
I'll throw down 20. I'll throw down $20.
$20 it is.
All right. $20 it is. So
and a case no, I was thinking about like adding in like a case of water and a box combo from Cane's. That's what I want.
You see, you have Cane's there, but we don't. We don't have a Cane's here.
We don't have Cane's here. We've got Slim Chickens here.
Oh, that's right. You got Slim Chickens. That's right. I forgot.
I did hear we might get one though. So let's see.
I'm just going to go out and say this. Whoever makes the Super Bowl here, I think we've kind of decided that no matter what, these are the two best quarterbacks in the NFL. Yep. Whether you want to put Mahomes as 1 or Burrow as 2, or like I said, Patty 1 and then Burrow 1A. It's the difference between an A and an A minus, or an A plus and an A. And I think this is we have never seen anything like Patrick Mahomes. And I believe that Joe Burrow is right now, the way that he's playing, not stylistically, but in terms of situational greatness, I think this is mirroring Tom Brady. I really do. I think this is exactly what we saw from Tom Brady back in the New England days, in the early days, where it was just 2 minutes on the clock. There was no doubt Brady was winning that game. And I think that's exactly what we're seeing here from Joe Burrow, is just this ultimate cool, this ultimate, composure, just to be able to step up into the pocket and deliver a strike. Joe Burrow is second to none in this league, and that includes, Patrick Mahomes. So I think we're looking at 1 and 1A.
Yeah, and to make a comparison with like an early Brady, I think I'd also make a same comparison and say Jamar Chase is not Randy Moss, but he's a pretty good receiver. And it's like to the same regard, it's like I think T. Higgins is better than Wes Welker. And I think it's like he's slightly better than, he's the same level better than Wes Welker that Randy Moss is better than Jamar Chase. So like they offset. And I think that's where, we're starting to see a lot of true accuracy. And Joe Burrow, I mean, he's hot right now. Like he is
won 10 straight games.
Man right now. Like
10 straight games, got to make it 11. They're calling it Burrowhead.
I did hear that.
They are calling it Burrowhead. And if he does walk in there, what is it? They've won 3 times, right?
They've won 3 straight. Again, he's won 3 straight against Patrick.
If he goes in there on Sunday and he wins and he's 4-0 in, or not in Arrowhead, but if he goes to 4-0 and he's playing against the Chiefs and he wins all 4 of those games,
yeah, but I still think
1-1A.
I still think that has to then go on like the Chiefs defense. But I get what you're saying. At this point, yes, Burrow is the second best quarterback in the league, but he's number 2, not 1A. Like we still have, there's a separate category for the person that's Mahomesian. Like remember that. Like let's just remember that.
All right. It's going to be an interesting weekend. We got a couple more topics to bring up. Frank Reich was just named the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. Now, we could talk a lot about how the internet is responding to the firing of Steve Wilks, or the firing, I should say, of Steve Wilks. It wasn't really a firing if you're an interim head coach. But I'm going to start with you, Quinn. My question, not about how do you grade this hire, I'm going to ask you how you grade it and what you think his first act as head coach is going to be in the upcoming 2023 NFL draft.
I kind of look at it as, it's like, well, like you said, with the interim head coach thing, it's like, well, I kind of feel bad in some sense for Matt Rule and like kind of like how he got dealt in. It's like, Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield and PJ Walker as your QB choices. Like, didn't have much there and didn't have much the year before and just never really got a chance to have the best players to coach. And I think some of that could be still on him, and that's why he's no longer in the building. For Frank Reich, it's now something like we've seen him be really, really good with Carson Wentz. And Carson Wentz is a guy who I'd almost compare to like a Brock Purdy, where it's like this kind of nowhere type person. But for Carson, it's like Carson was a top draft pick. Like Carson was somebody that we all expected to come in and play the role. Like he had been winning championships, like he had been playing high caliber football. Whereas that environment has kind of been gone from Carolina since Cam Newton was there. Like, and even when Cam was there, it was like this whole roller coaster thing the entire time. So I think really for what Coach Frank needs to do, I think it's more he needs to come in, he needs to be a stable voice, it needs to start to be a change in culture, because at this point, the way that Cam got the team and they started rolling and Ron Rivera was super defensive and he kind of let Cam go out and do Cam-like things, now is in a sense where it's like, well, Cam on his back half was not really that productive. He caused a lot of other issues. He caused off-field drama that caused on-field issues that then had a fracture with some coaching staff, and it was never really organized, and it's been some constantly shaking. So I think really all that's going to happen is it's like, hey, some grown-ups are back in the room. We're going to kind of sit down. We're going to start to stabilize some stuff. Let's not be too crazy and like willy-nilly, like, oh, we need this guy. Oh, we need this. And we need to do this. And it's like, no. Like, let's take a deep breath. We can get better in 1 year. Let's look at what we have. Let's take a real assessment. Look at the team. Like, are we really going to move forward with Sam Darnold? We've seen a lot with him. He's not really the guy.
No.
There's a reason the Jets moved on from him.
Not even close.
Coming out of college, I said Sam Darnold wasn't the guy. He made it to the NFL. He still wasn't the guy. He moved teams. He still wasn't the guy. Baker Mayfield, I said, wasn't going to be the guy in the NFL. He wasn't really that much of a guy in college. He came out, same thing. Not really that great in the NFL. Moves team. Still not that great. And so what you need to do now as a Panthers organization, you either make the decision and go, we are going long-term. We're about to make a couple moves where we're going to package some stuff and we're going to move up and we're going to try to get a guy who we can build around. Now, whether that be moving up to 1 and getting Bryce Young, whether that be moving to get CJ Stroud, whether that be moving to get the kid from Kentucky, whatever that is, you either establish a path with the front office and the ownership in the regards of, look, we are going to go long-term and I'm going to get this guy. We have this guy, and if this guy's not there and we can't make this happen, then we're falling on our backup plan. But we're going long-term. We're going to build around this person or this person, and in the next 3 years, we're going to be doing this. Or it's, hey, I know Jimmy G is probably going to be out there. If not Jimmy G, I'd even say he could be successful with Trey Lance. There are a couple pieces out there that are good enough, that are better than what they currently have in their quarterback room, that if they were to decide, hey, we're going to go get one of those, borderline guys that we've seen play very successful. I mean, at the end of the day, Jimmy G is a winner. If they found a way to get Jimmy G, as long as he's healthy, Jimmy G makes your team better. Now, defense kind of needs some work. The offensive other pieces kind of need some work. I mean, they're really not that great of a team, but Frank can put them on a plan, at least, that he's done successful. And I think that's kind of where it needs to be at this point.
What are the 3 keys of free agency to acquiring players? Yeah, I'm not talking about through the draft. What are the 3 keys that players look for in the offseason when it comes to acquiring or moving to a team or requesting to be a part of the team? Number 1 is location, physical location. Like, there's a reason that Green Bay doesn't get a lot of free agents, right? Because it's cold, it's Wisconsin, it's not a prime market. It might be a legend team, but it's not desirable. So physical location.
But this is a coastal city, so
well, hold on. So just
nice.
let me get there. So that's the first thing. Number 2 is the players around you. So are you going to a team where you can compete for a championship? And number 3 is, who's the head coach? Does the coach have a good system in place? Does the coach know what he's doing? Does he rally the troops around him? Is he a player's coach? Does he get the most out of these players? So one of the things that I believe that works against Carolina is, number 1, it's not the hottest, free agency destination. We don't see a bunch of players going, I want to go play in Carolina. Number 2, they don't have the pieces around them. Their best offensive piece is DJ Moore. So getting a quarterback like Jimmy G isn't going to work because he's a distributor. You don't have a lot of other players around him, or high value players that can make plays. This is a team that's very mediocre, right? Outside of DJ Moore, who else can you name as a productive receiver?
None.
Exactly. So you can't get a guy like Jimmy G. You need a big, strong, athletic quarterback that's going to make plays and extend plays. And that's why they're going to have to build in the draft. Now, I think they got the coach right? I mean, Frank Reich he's shown that he can do it for the Colts. He brought in Carson Wentz, and he was in a bad situation in Indianapolis, playing rent to QB. He had Rivers, then he had, Carson. He's never really been given the chance to kind of get his own guy in there, draft his own player, and develop him, right? Because even with Carson Wentz, he wasn't the head coach. Doug Peterson was. So now I think what you're looking at is Frank Reich goes in there, and as you said, okay, there's adults back into the room. Now it's time to go back out and get our guy. It's almost a revamping of the Cam Newton era. And I believe they've got their sights on CJ Stroud. And I think that's what they're going to go do. CJ Stroud threw for 41 touchdowns this last year in the Big Ten. And Big Ten football is no slouch. This isn't the Pac-12 or the Big 12 that we're playing against. CJ Stroud can throw, and he can make plays. Is he the number 1, best prospect we've seen in a long time? No, of course not. But he is big, he is athletic, and he is strong. And I think what you're going to see is they're going to take a wild risk. They're going to jump up to either 1 or 2, and they're going to say, look, it's time to draft our guy. We got the coach. It's a coastal city. We can get players around us if and only if we've got a quarterback that players want to play around. And I think that's exactly what they're going to do. So I give this grade, actually, believe it or not, I give it a B+, because I think Frank Reich now looks at it and goes, finally, I've got my own team. It's time to go get my quarterback.
Yeah, and I'll mention this too, because I think this is a separate issue. I think, yes, CJ Stroud is a good player. I think Bryce Young, yes, is a good player. But I think what we're starting to see that is starting to transpire more and more in what's going on with the NFL, we need to stop looking at the guys in college that are only playing at the best 2, 3, 4, 5 programs in the country. Like, yes, we get it. Trevor Lawrence played at Clemson. But at the end of the day, you look at Clemson, it's like Clemson gets a lot of good recruits, but it's not Alabama and it's not Ohio State. Like, they have a lot of really, really good players, but they also have a lot of really, really good coaches, and they don't get the same level of talent from other places. Playing at Ohio State and playing at Alabama, because those being our top 2 quarterbacks ranked this year, Bryce Young is a slightly bigger and more athletic Tua. That's all he is. The same goes for CJ Stroud. CJ Stroud might not be any better than Cardale Jones. Yes, he's more athletic and he's more nimble, and he, has better athleticism and playmaking, but that's extending the same way Cardale Jones did. Cardale Jones threw for 50 touchdowns, and for them, in playing at Ohio State, at Alabama, it's now going to shift, and it's like, okay, even playing at Michigan, to some degree playing at Clemson, playing at Georgia, if you're at any one of those programs, and it's going to now start to be USC to that same regard, I don't care if you put up a bunch of stats in college, because what I've started to see from what the NCAA has shifted into, you're throwing to guys who are wide open. You're throwing to guys who are so much better than the other team that you're playing. Like Ohio State, with the exception of when they play Michigan and pick one other team that year that is the best team in the Big Ten, they have 11 players that are better than their 11 players on both sides of the football every week, with the exception of Michigan and whoever the next best team is that next year in the Big Ten. And like, that's the issue that I feel like is starting to shift with the NFL. Because like, Tua's good, but he's not great. Jalen, I think, is only better now because of one, going to play a year with Lincoln Riley, and now being with Nick Sirianni. So in terms of what the Panthers can do, like, I think it's going to depend a lot more on how good Frank Reich's actual coaching can be for a guy like
Correct.
CJ Stroud.
Correct. And listen, I make a lot of, I think CJ Stroud can play, but if you want my honest, opinion of him, I think he's going to be a lot like a young Tyrod Taylor. Um, a guy I mean, because remember when Tyrod was drafted by the Bills, he was a really, really solid NFL quarterback for 2.5 years where we were like Tyrod can make some plays. Now,
Yep.
was he ever a top 10 quarterback? No, but he was always somewhere between that 15 and 20 range. I mean, he would make plays. He would make mistakes here and there. His accuracy was kind of a problem. He always seemed to make one or two really bad plays a game. But other than that, he could go out and win you football games. I think that's a lot what you're going to get with CJ Stroud, at least at first. It's a different speed in the NFL. The game is just so much faster than it is in college. However, I think, like you said, and you nailed it perfectly, this is going to come down to if Frank Reich can actually coach, we're going to see the ascension of CJ Stroud, if that's the guy they choose to go with, go from here to here. And that's exactly what I think they're going to be planning to do.
Yeah, because I mean, in terms of the exact what they need to follow, just look at what the Jags did. Like, hey, we went and got Trevor Lawrence and we had the wrong coach in place. Urban Meyer made that place a dumpster fire.
Yep.
You get a grown-up in Doug Peterson that comes in and they literally make the playoffs the next year. You saw Trevor play outstanding.
Not only that, they win a playoff game.
Like, that team was changed. And I think Frank Reich really has the potential to do that, but that's what's going to be seen in the next, 9 to 12 months once we get back to this point next year.
In the same vein that we say that quarterbacks need, whenever a quarterback like Baker, what was the longest criticism that you would hear about others when it came to Baker? Oh, he's on his 4th or 5th head coach in however many years. You got to get the coach right for the quarterback. Well, in the same vein, we should say the same thing for head coaches, but the opposite. The coach has to get the quarterback that he can say, look, we're going to sink our teeth into you for 3 years. I got 3 years to develop you. I got 3 years to work with you. And if you don't produce, fine, on to the next one. But I don't think Frank Reich's had that opportunity. Phillip Rivers for 2 years, who was already set in his ways. Carson Wentz for a year. And then finally you get, Matt Ryan, who, let's be completely honest, he needs to retire. I mean, the guy can't move outside of this 3-foot zone in the pocket. He just can't do it anymore. He never could do it, to be fair, but he's gotten older. He's just not in that place anymore. So I think it's going to be interesting to see what the Panthers do. I got my eye on that 1st or 2nd pick. I really think they're going to go up and get a quarterback. We got to move on, though, to our final topic. And this is the most sought after topic right now. This is the hottest thing that anybody's talking about. Reports coming out from the Green Bay Packers that, yes, they are seeking trades for Aaron Rodgers. They're asking for 2 first-round picks. The number 1 overall odds to land the 4-time MVP, the New York Jets, who would be offering 2 first-round picks in exchange for Rodgers. Now, Quinn, I have my thoughts on where Rodgers should end up, but let me ask you this. Where do you think he's going?
Really, the only place that the Jets have the cap space, they've got the young talent, they've got the ability to bring him in. He's an old guy. He's been around in this regard. He's filling his Brett Favre role now perfectly. We saw Brett Favre do it. Oh, well, I'm going to retire. Oh, I'm not going to retire. Oh, I'm going to retire. I'm not going to retire. And then finally the Packers are like, dude, you're out of here. We're done. Like, we've got this new kid. Like, we don't know how good he can, but then we saw Aaron Rodgers play great. So for them, it's like, well, is Jordan Love the guy? And it's like, well, but we just missed the playoffs with Aaron Rodgers. And it's like, I can miss the playoffs with Jordan Love and pay him a lot less money. We can go draft somebody, or we can trade for somebody that pay a lot less and miss the playoffs. So I think really for the Packers and where they're in the position right now, it's very intelligent for them to get him out of the building. The Jets are really kind of in a good place. We saw them through the midpoint of the year start to make a shift. They started to play some good football. They got themselves into the playoff picture. And then we saw terrible terrible quarterback play by Zach Wilson, and he got benched. And now what we're seeing immediately after that was Zach Wilson not be a grown-up, go back to childish Baker Mayfield-like, and just stupid comments, getting mad at the coaching staff, getting mad at the organization, getting mad at other things. That's not how you keep a job. For the Jets, that open vacancy could be filled by a veteran like Rodgers. He can handle New York media. He can already understand offensive schemes, offensive concepts. He could give the young guys maybe some help in terms of, it's not that I think he's going to come in and teach, and I don't think he wants to really be that guy because I don't think he cares enough. Like, I think Aaron cares about Aaron to some degree. I think he can come in, be a veteran, play as good as he can play. And honestly, for the Jets, it's kind of like, cool. We don't really exactly love any of the quarterbacks this year. We'll bring you in for a year. If not, we're shipping you out, and we're going to find any way to get Caleb Williams. Like, I think that could end up being a factor where it's like, hey, like, we get a year, we either get great success out of it and we see some real growth, or you're going to get bounced. We don't care. We've got no loyalty to you. And for Rodgers, it's like, hey, this is your chance to really revamp. This is your chance to go do something. Do I think it's the best location for him to do that? No. But because he's got so much money on a contract, because he's been the way he's been, for him, I'd rather retire than go play for the Jets. But it's like, that's kind of the nature of the NFL. Like, you are a piece that can be traded, and you're no longer in the conversation for top 5 or top 10 best quarterbacks in the league anymore, especially after how we saw him close out the year. So for the Jets, sure, go for it. He's not a top 10 quarterback anymore.
Well, so the Jets make perfect sense, in my opinion, 99 out of 100. I mean, let's think about it. They just hired Nathaniel Hackett to be their offensive coordinator. Rodgers and Hackett have had a great relationship when he was in Green Bay. In fact, they were really, really close, great friends. So I think that's appealing. You've got the pieces around you that may get a really strong running game. Breece Hall is going to come back, and he was unbelievable until he got hurt. You've got some really good receivers. The defense is fantastic. But there is one problem, in my opinion, that you're looking at from the New York Jets perspective, and that is their head coach, Robert Saleh. He's a defensive head coach. I think Rodgers, if he's going to go on and play somewhere else, he wants an offensive-minded guy. Look, he likes LaFleur. Let's not get this twisted. He didn't like McCarthy. He thought McCarthy's play calling was archaic, out of date. It wasn't his style. LaFleur played a lot more the way Rodgers liked. You know, you saw a lot of praise from Aaron Rodgers about LaFleur, saying his play calling's great. The schemes were really, really good. It just was about the development of these players around him. It just took too long for his receivers to get into tune, and the defense started playing bad. There was just a lot of chemistry issues this season for the Green Bay Packers. There is one team, though, that I believe if Rodgers were to go to, they're automatically Super Bowl contenders. And they're in the same division. It's the Miami Dolphins. Now, here's why. Let's start with the actual physical location. Miami's a party city. Rodgers is a party guy, right? He loves to be the talk of the town. He's California cool, although I understand it's on the other side of the coast, but it's a city that draws in a wild fan base. There's parties every night. There's clubs. He would literally be the most famous guy in Miami, and it wouldn't even be close. And I think that's appealing to Rodgers. You know, you're going from Green Bay, which is a Midwest town, very family oriented, and people, they know Aaron Rodgers. They love Aaron Rodgers, but it just doesn't fit Aaron Rodgers' personality. He's always been kind of larger than life, right? He's always been this guy that's just about Aaron. His brand is Aaron. It's never been Green Bay. And I think if you go to Miami, that fits your brand. You can be Aaron Rodgers. You can be the snarky, sarcastic and kind of manipulative guy. And people are going to be a lot more receptive. There's a lot of younger people down there. Everything's a good time. So that the physical place of Miami fits Rodgers' personality really well. When it comes to football, Mike McDaniel is a guy who came from where? San Francisco, who Kyle Shanahan coached up and was kind of like, this is my scheme. This is how I do. So he's brought a lot of things from San Fran. And what do we know about Aaron Rodgers? is his favorite team. He has a lot of respect for Kyle Shanahan. In fact, it's one of the places he said he's wanted to play. So you get a direct product from the Kyle Shanahan offense. Oh, yeah, forgot to mention, you get the best wide receiver duo in the league in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, who both put up over 1,000-yard seasons this year. Complement that with Mike Gesicki, who's a very good tight end, something the Packers don't have, and a competent running game. I wouldn't say it's great. It's probably not nearly as good as Jones and I'm drawing a blank. Aaron Jones. Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. I was getting them flipped. Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. It's not nearly as good, but Jeff Wilson Jr. is a very competent back. They've got a very solid running game in Miami. Their problem is defense. And if all they say to Aaron is, look, if you come here, we'll draft defensive players. Where does Miami have a problem? I mean, the only thing that doesn't make sense right now is the cap space. But if you get rid of a guy like Byron Jones, who's their fourth highest paid player, and he's a corner, and you send out Tua, you say, hey, we'll ship Tua over to Green Bay. He'll have a QB competition job with Jordan Love, and we'll throw in a fourth-round pick for you. I think this is a win on all fronts. The Packers send Rodgers over to Miami. He's in the AFC. He's away from the Packers. And Aaron gets everything he's ever wanted. 2 established receivers, a really solid tight end, a good offensive line, competent running game, and a defense that can be rebuilt. What else is wrong with that scenario?
There's not really much wrong with the scenario. It just kind of plays out to the degree that I think Aaron in that situation is kind of ends up as like the same situation that like people put on for him in the last week of the season. Like they're giving him a lot of heat and a lot of flack. Like you're right. He has enough competent pieces in Green Bay that he shouldn't have played as poorly as he did for the entirety of the season. So sending him to Miami could have this new resurgence for him, and he could have this new transcendent type year that brings him right back into the conversation of, is he, one of the best quarterbacks in the game? But I think what's going to happen is he's going to continue to be an Aaron. He's going to continue to be that guy that doesn't truly give as much effort as needed to be, of that highest caliber in the NFL in the offseason. And Miami's a great location. They've got a bunch of great pieces, but to that same issue in terms of Mike McCarthy, he won a lot with Mike McCarthy. He lost a lot of big games with Matt LaFleur. I think to some degree, Mike McCarthy being a grown-up and having the defensive side of the ball figured out, him and Nathaniel Hackett, like having a great OC, if Robert Saleh doesn't call a single play, what does it matter if it's a defensive head coach? You can allow Hackett to have the entire offensive scheme. You can allow him to control everything on offense, and that can be Aaron and Hackett's world. They can go and do a bunch of stuff. I think both the Jets and the Dolphins are a good fit. Honestly, the fact that he's not with the Packers anymore as a Bears fan he won't be a Packer anymore as a Bears fan is pretty dope. It's really good. But other than that, it's
well,
like
let me
where he ends up, I don't care. He's not really that good anymore.
Let me bring up this point. We heard Rodgers' soundbite earlier this week say that he believes that he can still win an MVP. Now, what do we know about Aaron Rodgers? He cares far more about his individual statistics than he does about Super Bowls. And that's fine. Listen, not every player's goal when they make this league is to be the greatest of all time and to win a bunch of Super Bowls. Some guys love the game, they love the money, they love the lifestyle, and that is okay, right? Aaron clearly cares about his image as this perfect quarterback, the guy that doesn't throw interceptions, the guy that wins the most MVPs. That's what we know Aaron cares about. So where do you believe Aaron could win the MVP next season? It's going to be because he's 40 years old, going to be turning 40 years old. He needs players around him that can pad his stats. Who are the ultimate stat padders in the league? Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Look what they did with Tua. I mean, Tua for the first 8 weeks of the season was the number 1 quarterback in total QBR, and we all laughed at it. We said, oh my God, this is a product of all receiver, all coaching. This has nothing to do with Tua. Because what happens when there was just a little bit of pressure put on Tua, when he actually had to make throws? He played terrible. Exhibit A, against Green Bay. When they played the Packers, Tua had one of the worst games of his entire career. 3 horrible picks. So there's one place that Rodgers can go where he can say, if I really want to win that 5th MVP, it's got to be somewhere where I can get my stats padded. And those are the 2 guys that can do it.
Yeah, I think it comes more for what Mike McDaniel wants to do. I think it's purely
Correct.
If he wants to deal with it. I mean,
Correct.
like you said, 40 years old. We saw what Rodgers did. We've seen what he can do, but we've seen him the last 3 years. He really hasn't been the same in the last 3 years. He's really digressed the last 3 years. I think if I'm the Dolphins, I don't want to bring him in. Like, I think that's the difference of like, oh yeah, the Dolphins is a great fit. It's like, yeah, but we don't want him. Like for the Jets, like I think the Jets brand would be like, yeah, sure, we'll take you, because like New York's there's a lot of big names in New York. Like Rodgers, yes, he's a big name and like he would stand out in New York, but at the same time, it's like, yeah. But like, this is New York, kid. Like, we've been here. Like, we do this. Like, we're just like you. Like, we're the same big dog, like big names. I just think the Dolphins being like, hey, don't mess it up. Like, if anything, get someone else that's not Tua, but like, don't like.
But that's
go get Jimmy G before you get Rodgers.
But that is also what Aaron has thrived upon his entire career, is sort of being. I mean, look at the Packers. No owner, so he has no one to answer to, right? I mean, he's the ultimate, like, what I say goes, and if you don't like it, trade me. Like, I mean, that's like kind of been his attitude the entire. So if he goes to New York, you're right. There's going to be pushback. They're going to say, "Look, kid." Well, not kid, because he's a grown man. Look, Aaron. Like, this is New York. You can't pull that shit you pulled in Green Bay here. And I don't think that's appealing to Aaron. I think Aaron wants control. Aaron wants to be able to control the narrative. He wants to be able to control the media, and he wants to be able to control all aspects of his football career. That's why he always is waiting till the very last second to decide what he does with the, am I going to retire? Am I not going to retire? Aaron likes control. And I think if he goes to Miami, he's got control. I've got the pieces. I've got a franchise that's like, oh my God, we've got Aaron Rodgers. We're going to do everything we can to make this guy happy. I mean, let me ask you, if you're Mike McDaniel.
But that's the thing. I don't think the Dolphins think that way. I think the Dolphins think in the regards of, they understand Mike McDaniel knows what he's doing. Like, yes, he may have been vaping on the sidelines against the Bills, but like, what does that matter? Like, he outcoached the Bills and almost won a playoff game with Skylar Thompson. Do you think they need Aaron Rodgers? Aaron Rodgers at this point isn't better than Skylar Thompson.
Oh,
Thompson, whatever his name.
No. That's not true at all.
For the cap hit and the negative, terrible bullshit attitude that Aaron brings, he is worse. And that's, I think the Dolphins would avoid that. You have young guys that have a bunch of cohesion, avoid bringing in the old guy that thinks, yes, in an offensive mind, but Aaron doesn't play offense like the Dolphins do. He plays a different high caliber offense. The Dolphins are high caliber, young, speed, flashy, quick. Like, Aaron's not that guy. Aaron is a lot more methodical, and I think is a more of an issue. Like, yes, it's a perfect fit for him. I think it's not a perfect fit for the Dolphins. And I think that's why it probably doesn't happen.
Okay, so let me ask you this one final question then. Obviously, the speculation and the sorry about this. It's my email. The speculation and the rumors around the Tua situation, right? Where is Tua the guy? Are we going to keep Tua? Are we going to, if you're Mike McDaniel and you have the ability to, you get rid of, you're saying, hey, look, we're going to move off of Tua. We have the ability to either draft a guy or go get someone in free agency. Would you rather have a guy like Jimmy Garoppolo, who's got a injury history, and it has shown that not going to do it well on the statistics, but he's gonna do his best to keep you in games and win games? Or you could go get Aaron Rodgers, who maybe is not nearly the Aaron Rodgers that he once was, but puts you that much higher and that much more of a chance to win a Super Bowl. I think it's a no-brainer. I think he would absolutely take that phone call.
See, but with those two options of what you just laid out and like the knocks that you had on Jimmy G, like that's like Aaron has not been as good as Jimmy G in the last 3 years. So in terms of looking at it from the last 3 years and looking forward for the next
What?
year to 2 years,
Whoa,
Jimmy
go back. Not as
Aar
good as Jimmy G in the last 3. He won back-to-back MVPs 2 years ago.
did it result in the Packers winning an NFC
But you can't
championship?
no, okay, but you
Did
can't
it result
maybe the
who so
Niners had
okay,
a better result, but
okay, but you're saying for right now, who would we rather take in terms of
I would have Aaron Rodgers. Absolutely.
a 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers who also
Yes.
has his own injury problems,
Not
or
nearly as much as Jimmy G. Not even close. Jimmy
okay,
G's hurt every season.
which is fine and understand, but at the same time of what you said, Jimmy G beat Aaron Rodgers the last 2 seasons and bounced him out of the playoffs. Jimmy G doesn't make mistakes and doesn't have the temperament of Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers isn't going to work on most NFL teams he's on because he plays the baby card and he's not a grown adult and throws a hissy fit. He has the most throwaways, I think, probably in the last 3 years. He's now starting to turn the ball over. He's older. He's not as mobile. He doesn't have the same stamp. Yes, he might still be a good player, but I don't think he's MVP Aaron anymore. And especially in the AFC, you think you want to put Aaron Rodgers every single week against playing twice a year against Josh Allen. If the Jets finally do go get an actual competent QB, you could be playing against another very good QB in the AFC twice a year if they figure it out. Mac Jones, if he gets better with Bill O'Brien or not, if they even keep him around. But it's like you still have Patrick Mahomes, Justin Herbert, like wherever Tua ends up. Like there's Joe Burrow. There's a lot of talent in the AFC. And I don't think Aaron Rodgers is even in the question when it comes to top quarterback talent, especially in the NFC and the league. He's just not anymore.
Okay, well, here's my final thoughts on it because we can agree to disagree all day long.
Yeah.
We can argue back and forth, but here's my final thoughts. I think you and I are both under the agreement that it's either going to be retirement or it's going to be another team because he's not going to play for the Packers next year.
No, not at all. He is that tie is severed. Like that's done. Like
Yeah,
that is done. And I think for Aaron's sake, it would probably be better for him just to retire now. Like retire, we get it. It's not probably how you wanted to go out. It's not really the best
It
feeling.
never is.
But if it's, hey, you go to another team and you do your same antics and shenanigans, and they're like, all right, dude, like we're not putting up with that. Like, bye. It's like, okay, would you rather then end up benched and cut or would then traded away again? It's like, I don't want him to then turn into like a journeyman in the NFL where it's like, yo, you're going to play for the Jets and then you're going to play for the Browns and then you're going to play for this team. Like, I don't think Aaron Rodgers should do that. Like, dude, you're a great quarterback. You were at your peak. We've seen you now decline. I think part of it's on you. You had a lot of pieces. I think it's how it goes now. Like,
It's possible. It's definitely possible.
like you said, it's the ayahuasca. Like just go do more of that. Like
peyote.
like that stuff. Just go do that. Keep the greaser look. Slick the hair back.
Yep.
Hang out with
He's Mr. Cool.
Hang out with the new girlfriend. I think since
Yeah.
he got new girlfriend.
Go to raves. Do your thing. So we're out of time. We are out of time, but it is always a great weekend, and we will be back on Tuesday to kind of go over the AFC and NFC championship games and also halfway preview the Super Bowl. So this is a very yes, the old Chiefs. Let's go Chiefs. From the Air Tech Heating Studios live in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, and from Fargo, North Dakota, I am Trace the Moose Moustakis. Remember, you can find us anywhere you get your podcast. You can find us on TikTok. You can find us on Instagram at Say It Like You See It Pod. We're going to be posting regular updates. You can also find us on YouTube and on Facebook. And one more time, because Quinn, it's such cool news. Give us a little 30-second plug for your new brand ambassador role with Bucked Up.
Yeah, so brand ambassador for Bucked Up, essentially the easiest way. If you're already a fan of Bucked Up, you can head to either my Instagram or TikTok at mighty_Q21. Click the link in the bio. That store link gets you 20% off any product. If you haven't tried Bucked Up's products before, like I said, I've used their pre-workout for the last 2 years. There are a bunch of sample packs. That's a free pack. All you got to do is pay shipping and handling. That link is also in the bio of Instagram and TikTok at mighty_Q21. Like, just click the link. You got a free sample pack. It also comes with a free shaker bottle. So
wonderful. And that's a great little add-on right there. I know I'm going to be purchasing mine. I need some new pre-workout, but like I said, this is Say It Like You See It, live from the Air Tech Heating Studios. Have a wonderful weekend. Have a great football weekend, and we will see you on